Behind every manga you've ever loved, there's a person who's probably suffering. No sleep, no breaks, no peace, just passion and pain. No matter who you are or where in the world you're from, you've probably seen or at least heard of anime. It's huge, watched by millions of people across all ages, races, and genders. Most anime are adaptations of Japanese comic books, known as manga, spanning every genre and style imaginable. Now, the closest thing in North America would be comic book artists. But if you think manga creators and comic artists live similar lives, you'd be dead wrong. While comic creators in the US are often supported by teams of writers, artists, and inkers, mangaka frequently work alone. This results in brutal crunch times and weeks filled with stress, all while trying to deliver polished, serialized work under insane deadlines. They push themselves beyond what most humans could handle, and that dedication deserves recognition. So today, we're going to take a closer look at the price of being a mangaka. The term mangaka refers to a Japanese comic artist, someone who writes and or illustrates manga. Many mangaka start their careers as assistants to more experienced artists, essentially working as apprentices, helping with backgrounds, inking, or special effects. It's a grueling process, but an essential step in learning the craft. Becoming a successful mangaka, unfortunately, isn't solely about talent. It's about perseverance, timing, and luck. The industry is incredibly competitive, and only a small percentage of aspiring artists ever see their work published or gain mainstream recognition. Some achieve fame at a young age, while others spend decades chasing their dreams, often with little reward. The road there is tough, but for those who make it, it only gets tougher. You would think having finally made it into the business and securing a spot in one of the popular weekly manga magazines would be a dream come true. And while that's partially true, it is a massive achievement worthy of celebration and accolades. This coveted position may be more punishment than reward at times. Just because a mangaka makes it to the top and becomes serialized doesn't mean they'll stay there. Careers can rise and fall in an instant, and there's always another eager artist waiting in the wings. What used to be a slower, meticulous process, carefully crafting every detail at their own pace when they were solo artists, is suddenly gone. Now they're expected to produce polished, high-quality chapters every single week, without fail. Fans are hungry for the next installment, and mangaka have only a few days to draft, write, sketch, detail, and ink multiple pages. There are no breaks. Schedules are absolute nightmares. Many work 10 to 16-hour days with nearly every waking moment dedicated to their series. They wake early to draft or plot, push themselves for hours, and continue late into the night, often getting just a few hours of sleep before starting again. And it never ends. The weekly nature of serialization means even one day off could disrupt the story. So many simply don't take breaks. This is inhuman work, and very few can handle it without breaking under the stress. Families are often left behind, with mangaka spending months away from loved ones for fear of falling behind, or worse, being cancelled. Masashi Kishimoto, the mangaka behind Naruto, knows this better than anyone. While working on the series, Kishimoto worked a non-stop 15 years, where each and every week he was responsible for writing a script, storyboarding, penciling, and inking the art, as well as overseeing his assistants as they worked on backgrounds for him. The result was 70 to 80-hour work weeks with about 3 hours of sleep per night. Far less than recommended, and enough to drive any normal human to the brink of insanity. Experiencing severe insomnia, he would go on to pass out at his desk from time to time mid-drawing. With this insane schedule, he simply did not have enough time for a personal life, and sadly, missed out on the majority of his children's childhoods, only getting to know his son once Naruto had concluded, sacrificing some of the best years of his life to his creation. But beyond the mental strain, there's the physical toll. Now I know what you're thinking. How does drawing lead to physical injuries?
The CIA got you pushing too many pencils?
And yeah, under normal circumstances, nobody's gonna hurt themselves sketching. But mangaka do this day in and day out, non-stop. Thousands of hours sitting in chairs, combined with stress, isolation, and often poor nutrition, is a recipe for disaster. Wrist injuries like carpal tunnel and tendinitis are incredibly common. Back and neck problems are almost guaranteed. Fatigue and sleep deprivation are killers. Some mangaka go for days with almost no rest. Over the years, some have even been hospitalized, and tragically, others have lost their lives due to the lifestyle demanded by their craft. Let's take a look at the biggest example in the industry, Yoshihiro Togashi. Yoshihiro Togashi is known around the world as one of the most successful mangaka of all time, having created not just one, but two massively influential series, Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter. Starting Yu Yu Hakusho back in 1990, Togashi was full of youth and optimism, excited to create a manga that combined two of his biggest passions, martial arts and the occult. And while the series began as a dream come true for him, it didn't stay that way for long. As Yu Yu Hakusho skyrocketed in popularity, Togashi's physical and mental health began to deteriorate. During the Dark Tournament arc, he calculated that he was getting about 4 hours of personal time per page, and maybe 5 hours of sleep a night, if he was lucky. The endless workload and pressure started taking a serious toll on his body. By the time the Sensui arc rolled around, Togashi had reached his breaking point. He wanted to end the series entirely. His editors tried to convince him to keep it going, but Togashi insisted someone else could take his place. When Yu Yu Hakusho finally ended, he felt relieved, free to live his life again. Until he did it, all over again. That's right, the absolute madman decided to start another manga, Hunter x Hunter. This time, Togashi drew inspiration from one of his hobbies, collecting things. But as fate would have it, everything Togashi touches turns to gold. Hunter x Hunter became another massive hit, and with that success came the same crushing pressure to produce more. Despite being a manga artist capable of incredibly detailed, beautiful pages, Togashi started receiving criticism for Hunter x Hunter's rougher art. The truth was simple. He didn't have the time or the energy to perfect every page like he once did. He even went as far as to apologize to fans, later redrawing and improving many of the rough panels for the collected tankobon volumes. But even though he was spending less time on the artwork, his workload was still unbearable. The stress broke him once again. Hunter x Hunter began experiencing repeated hiatuses as Togashi's health continued to decline, until today. He can only draw for short periods of time, and often only while lying down. It's absolutely heartbreaking. After decades of pouring his soul into manga, this is the end result. The very thing he loved most has become a source of pain and guilt. Togashi feels like he's let his fans down, when in reality, he's given us more than anyone ever could. And this isn't uncommon in the industry. Up to this point, it might sound like absolute torture. Mangaka essentially dedicate every waking moment of their lives to their work. So why do they do it? What drives someone to pursue a life that demands so much, even when it means giving up everything else? For many, it's their dream and passion. Growing up in Japan, countless children were surrounded by these series that they love. Inspired by the stories and characters that captured their imagination, they practiced art in their spare time, honing their skills and trying to create worlds of their own. For them, becoming a mangaka isn't just a job. It's the realization of a lifelong dream. Japanese work culture in general is also very different from what we're used to in North America. Unpaid overtime, 50 to 60 hour work weeks non-stop, putting the company's needs ahead of your own, staying late until the job is done. These are common. Companies often follow a hierarchy, and if a senior staff member has not completed their work, it is expected that you will stay and help them until it's completed. Vacation days often go unused out of fear of leaving the team shorthanded, and loyalty to the company is held in the highest regard, with many employees spending decades, if not their entire lives, at the same career. With all this in mind, it's easy to see why many Japanese workers accept intense schedules. But for mangaka, the reward is doing something they love. Even if the hours are brutal, the chance to create stories and worlds they're passionate about is worth far more than a job that brings no fulfillment, even if the career path and lifestyles that come with could do with improvement. And this brings me to one man who has sacrificed over 25 years to a single story. One manga that, while becoming a worldwide phenomenon, has robbed its creator of free time and any hope of a normal life. That manga is One Piece, and that man is Ichiro Oda. Oda is the most successful manga creator in history, and while he could have easily called it a day years ago, passing the torch, retiring rich, and living comfortably for the rest of his life, he didn't. Even now, with more money than he could ever spend, Oda continues to dedicate every waking moment of his life to the series so many of us love. Obviously, he's not doing this for the money. He does it because he loves the world of One Piece. He lives to create and to share that world with others. But that love has led him to a life that many would call torture. Oda reportedly works around 20 hours a day, sleeping only 3 to 4 on average. No joke. This is the level of dedication we're talking about. His schedule is absolutely brutal. From Monday to Wednesday, he's drawing the manuscript. Thursday is for meetings and touch-ups. On Friday, while most people are looking forward to the weekend, Oda's deep in the next script and storyboard. Saturday is spent editing and communicating with Shonen Jump, and then Sunday comes. No rest, just prepping for Monday. Imagine doing that for a week. You'd be absolutely drained. But Oda? He's been doing it every single week for over 2 decades. But no story captures the weight of that sacrifice, quite like Berserk. A manga so detailed, so haunting, and so personal that its creator quite literally gave everything to bring it to life. Kentaro Miura didn't just make a story, he lived it, and it cost him everything. Kentaro Miura is responsible for one of the greatest dark fantasy manga ever created, Berserk. Miura began the series in his early 20s, and from that moment on, his life didn't just revolve around Berserk. It became Berserk. He was a perfectionist in every sense of the word. Where most manga artists would rely heavily on assistants for line work, backgrounds, and finishing details, Miura insisted on doing most of it himself. Every shadow, every line of armor, every brick in a castle wall was drawn with obsessive care. The man would spend entire days rendering a single page, layering, cross-hatching, texture and depth until it looked less like a manga panel and more like a piece of Renaissance art. Each page of Berserk could easily stand alone as a painting filled with emotion, scale, and brutality that felt almost impossible to replicate. He reportedly spent up to 100 hours a week working on this series, constantly revising pages, redrawing scenes, and fine-tuning compositions until they met his impossible standards. Those who worked with him said he lived almost entirely in his studio, sleeping in short bursts and working deep into the night, sometimes redrawing entire chapters because he wasn't satisfied with the tone or the flow. It was as if he was possessed, a man with one singular goal, to create Berserk. Anything outside of that goal was meaningless to him. But years of constant overwork, sleepless nights, and physical strain inevitably came with a price. In 2021, at just 54 years old, Kentaro Miura tragically passed away from an acute aortic dissection. a heart condition, often linked to stress and exhaustion. And with that, the world lost one of the greatest artists to ever live. Miura gave everything to the series he created, even his life. Berserk wasn't just his art, it was his existence. Miura's passing was a wake-up call, a reminder that behind every masterpiece, there's a human being, one who bleeds, suffers, and struggles, just like the rest of us. So how do you fix this? If people are suffering severe, lifelong physical and mental health issues, and even death because of this career, is there a way to make it less harmful? Like many things, there have been some advancements. Some manga artists, like the aforementioned Togashi, choose to go on hiatus. But this is more like putting a bandage on a wound than truly solving the problem. And it's only an option if you have the reputation and clout to do so. For newcomers, this is virtually impossible. Other solutions include slower release schedules. Some established mangaka prefer monthly releases instead of weekly, giving them the time to create at their own pace. Working with assistants has also become more common, allowing tasks like drafting and inking to be shared among multiple people rather than resting entirely on a single individual. In my opinion, the only way to truly fix this system would be a complete overhaul, removing weekly releases, shifting away from the idea of a single creator producing an entire series, and moving towards larger teams collaborating on stories and art. This would fundamentally change how manga is produced from the ground up. Of course, this is easier said than done. The system has been in place for decades, and change takes time. There's also a cultural and artistic element at stake. One of the things that makes manga special is that it's often the vision of a single creator. One person crafting the story, the art, and the world entirely on their own is what gives serialized manga its unique cohesion and charm. Any reform would have to balance artist health while preserving that singular creative vision. No matter whether you read manga or not, I think we can all take a moment to appreciate the profession and show respect for the sacrifices that these artists make. The amount of themselves they pour into their craft is staggering, and what might seem like a trivial or insignificant pursuit to some is for them everything, and worth dedicating their lives to. Over the years, countless manga artists have worked endless hours, spent time away from family and friends, and sacrificed comfort, and even their very lives, to create the stories we love. This video is dedicated to them, the ones who gave everything so we could dream.